So, I'm curious, would you say that this is a big frying pan? Maybe. Maybe not. It depends on the kinds of frying pans you've seen, right? But would you ever say maybe this is a huge frying pan? Probably not, right? But then maybe you could say that about this. This is a huge frying pan. It's pretty big. You can cook a lot in this, right? Would you say it's a gigantic frying pan? Probably not, right? You might even just say it's a big frying pan. And if you say this is a big frying pan, then would this also be a big frying pan, or would this now be a small frying pan? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on what you think of as a small frying pan. But would you look at this and say this is a tiny frying pan? I don't know. Probably not. You probably have to find something like this and say that's a tiny frying pan, right? Or depending on what size frying pan, maybe this is just a small frying pan. But the point is that when we use words to describe something, we oftentimes use what's called different shades of meaning, meaning they could either be less intense or more intense, right? This wouldn't call it a big frying pan, might call it a small frying pan, probably call it a teeny frying pan, but I probably wouldn't call it what's called a microscopic frying pan, which is so tiny you can't even see it, right? So it's important to get the right shade of meaning, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Yo from Hand to Mind, and this is the second day of the 6th week of our second grade Teach at Home series. And today we're going to talk about, as I said, shades of meaning. So, without further ado, let's get started. In today's lesson, we're going to be working on finding the different shades of meaning of different words. And by that, I mean finding how intense a word can be and determining, does that match the sentence we're trying to express, or do we need to find a word that is either less intense or more intense? So without further ado, let's get to it. If you hear the sentence, make sure you wear the right clothes, it's wet outside. Wet outside. What are the right clothes? Well, if it's wet outside, I'm thinking boots probably is the most important thing, right? I mean, if it's just wet on the ground, that's all you really need, right? You could just wear jeans, sweatshirt, normal clothes, right? But if you change that word wet to it's storming outside, make sure you wear the right clothes. It's storming outside. Well, that's a more intense word, right? That word is far more intense than wet. So when I hear that, well, the right clothes changes a little bit, right? Now I'm not just wearing boots, I'm wearing two pairs of pants. I'm wearing a underlayer and a t-shirt and then a turtleneck and then a sweatshirt and then a jacket and then a scarf and then a beanie and earmuffs, right? I'm wearing all of that stuff because I want to stay warm because it's storming outside. So that just goes to show that the intensity or the shade of meaning of your word is going to change the idea that you're trying to share in your sentence. So words can have different shades of meaning. Some words have more intensity or strength in their meaning, right? And then some words have less intensity. So if we were to take the word nice, right? Nice, oh, that's nice, right? Well, if we want to make the meaning of that word more intense, we could say a word like great. So instead of like, how was the movie? Oh, it was nice. You could say, oh, it was great. It was great, right? That sounds a little more intense. It tells us that you like the movie a little more. But if you want to say it's even better than great, what could you say? How about amazing? How was the movie? It was amazing, right? I've seen several great movies in my life. Amazing movies? I don't know. Far fewer, maybe just 3 or 4, right? Now I want to challenge you. I gave you a word, eat. And I want you to think of words that are more intense than the word eat. So I am going to eat this slice of pizza. I came up with one. Here's a funny one. gobble. Instead of I'm going to eat this slice of pizza, I'm going to gobble this slice of pizza. That makes me feel like I'm going to eat this quickly. I'm so excited to eat it. It's going to be gone really soon, right? But then if you wanted to get even more intense than gobble, what could you use? What about devour? Devour. That's a big word. Devour. That means that pizza's gone, right? It's gone real quick because I'm going to devour that pizza. Now I'm going to ask you to think of words that are less intense than the word enormous, right? So enormous is really, 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 really big, right? That's an enormous ship, right? So that's like a cruise ship, huge. It's like a whole city, enormous, right? What's something less than enormous? Now, a word I can think of is large, right? Large is less than enormous. It means something similar, but if you're large, well, you go to McDonald's, you can get a large soda. It's pretty big, right? But if you get an enormous soda, it's like, the size of your arm is enormous, right? So I think we could figure out a word that's in between enormous and large. How about huge? That's huge, right? So you go to McDonald's, you can get a large soda. You can get a huge soda, right? Or you can get an enormous soda. Different shades of intensity. Huge is just one shade less than enormous. Whereas the word large is maybe 2 shades less than enormous in terms of intensity, right? Large is the least intense, enormous is the most intense, and huge is in the middle. And speaking of in the middle, I gave you the word hot, right? Hot. And I want to challenge you to think of a word that's more intense than hot, so as a shade of meaning above hot, and a word that's less intense or a shade of meaning below the word hot. So let's start with the word that's below hot, a shade of meaning below hot. So if something's hot, well, something that's not as hot, but still hot can be warm, right? But what about something that's really hot? What's a good word for that? Steaming hot. Steaming hot. Or scalding hot, right? Or burning. There's so many words you can use, right? But yes, that is an example of differing intensity. So thank you so much for enjoying and joining our lesson on shades of meaning. And for more resources, please visit handtomindathome.com, and I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow in our next lesson. Have a good one.